Welcome everyone. We do a weekly speaker series, and then occasionally we bring in our amazing, extraordinary members to teach and share their wisdom with our community. And so Caroline is a Sidebar member, but she's so extraordinary. She's an executive coach. She's a book author. She has had the storied career in investment banking before she discovered her passion around coaching and teaching and helping others be more confident. I am thrilled that she's a member of this community, and I am thrilled that she has immense wisdom that she's going to share with us today. And Caroline, I'm so excited to meet you at the Sidebar Summit. We also are going to get copies of your book for the Sidebar Summit. So if you're joining us at the summit, maybe Caroline will be so generous to do a book signing for us. So I'm so excited to meet you in person, but I'm also so thrilled to hear what you have to say about confidence today. So I'll kick it back over to you.
Thank you very much. All right, so today we're going to be talking about NeuroConfidence, how to rewire your brain for presence and power. And my goal is to enable you to really show how you can maximize your impact through true, authentic confidence and executive presence. And that is based on neuroscience, a real passion of mine, and also habits and tools and things that we'll go through. At the end, you'll be getting a beautiful summary that you can take a screenshot of, and I'll drop in a PDF as well. So you'll have that for reference. So don't worry about writing lots of notes. You will have some of those that you can take away as well. We will hopefully have some time for Q&A too. But certainly I recommend you make the investment worth it. Put your phone to the side, close all the windows, and then we can really get stuck in. There's going to be lots of stuff that we go through. So first of all, as Har mentioned, I spent 18 years in investment banking, and I worked in Australia, Singapore, and London. And I did lots of different roles, from leadership roles, global leadership roles, predominantly focused on the client service area. But also I ended up being a chief of staff for technology and operations for the corporate investment bank. During that period, I trained as a professional coach, and I left investment banking in December 2019 and started my business, Brain Powered Coaching. And so Brain Powered is the company that I run. I work with lots of different organizations, some of which you'll probably be familiar with. And I'm going to go through lots of the teachings that we have, both with individuals and corporates, as well as what is in my book as well. So this is what you're going to be learning in the coming minutes. My goal is to educate and have impact on over 1 million people by 2034. So thank you for being part of that target for me. So today what we're going to be covering are 3 neurofacts, my Power A5 formula, some deep dive reflections, and also Q&A, as I mentioned. But firstly, I want to ask you a question, and that is, what would you do if you weren't afraid? What would you do if you didn't have any self-doubt? Maybe it would be maybe you would take a big step that you've been thinking that you have that inside you, but you haven't had the confidence to do it. Maybe you would speak up in meetings more, have a tough discussion that you've been avoiding. Or maybe you'd be asking for actual investment, that investment that you know that your company deserves. I'm sure lots of you would be asking for a pay rise, promotion, or maybe a different role, or perhaps just saying no more, having better boundaries in your life. I believe that confidence is the most powerful tool that you can use to maximize your impact, to harness your unique capabilities, and to demonstrate really deep executive presence. So we'll start with the definition of confidence. And this is one from a chap called Brendan Burchard. I'm sure, given lots of you, you're the kind of people who are on Sidebar, you may well have heard of him. He's an incredible businessman, a motivational speaker. He runs Growth Day, a big personal growth application. And what he says about confidence is belief in my ability to figure things out. And notice, this isn't something in terms of it being a destination. What he talks about is that confidence is a journey. You don't have all the answers, but you know what, you're going to give it a go. And this is fundamental to understand around confidence. You may not know what you're doing, but real confidence, authentic confidence, is saying, you know what, I trust myself to figure it out. So let's look at 3 neuro facts. And I don't know about you, I spent many years in my training through the years. And what I found was that there were so many things that I was told, but no one told me why. And I found that very frustrating. And it's been the change in terms of fMRI imaging, functional magnetic resonance imaging, that has helped us understand the brain and a lot of the mechanisms as to why our behavior is as it is. So the first thing I want to do is give you a little bit, just a very high level on how the brain works. And clearly the brain is extremely complicated. So this is a simplification of it, but these 3 areas are really important in terms of the other facts that we'll discuss. And that is that we have these 3 core areas in our brain: the neocortex, limbic system, and the reptilian brain. Now, the neocortex is particularly the prefrontal cortex. It's more towards the front of your brain. This is your brain's CEO. It's about problem solving. It's about strategic planning for the future, and it makes the decisions. So it's that really smart part of the brain. We also have the limbic system, and the limbic system is a bit like an internal GPS. It has the amygdala and the hippocampus in it. And it's the emotional heart of the brain. And this is where we process feelings, create memories, and we guide decisions based on experiences. And the amygdala are 2 almond shapes kind of behind your nose here. And think of them like a smoke alarm, always looking for danger. They're always waiting to check if there's any danger in our environment. And the third part of our brain is what I call the autopilot. And that is the reptilian brain. This is the brainstem and hypothalamus. And this is all about the essentials. So this is our breathing, our heart rate, and what you're probably aware of, that fight or flight response. So when we have a survival response, this is what is kicking in. If someone is brain dead when they're classified as brain dead, it's normally because this part is still working, but the rest of the brain, the part that makes us human, sadly, is no longer functioning. So why is this important? I'm going to tell you a story which will demonstrate exactly why. So I'd been in investment banking for 15 years, and I was asked to be the chief of staff for the corporate investment bank. And this was the biggest role I'd ever had. It was 25,000 people in the organization, and I was chief of staff to the CEO of that organization. And although I was good at what I'd done, I had been a top performer through my career, when I got into that role, I didn't know what I was doing, and it was really scary. I was trying to navigate my way through. I was dealing with the board, with senior leaders. But any of you who are aware, a chief of staff role, you are very, very visible because you're dealing with the most senior people in the organization. And I started to make stupid mistakes, just little things. And I wasn't getting any feedback from my manager. And so the more little mistakes I make, and I could just tell in my mind, I was thinking, oh no, just another eye roll, here we go. My perception was he was thinking, this is a disaster. We've made a terrible mistake. And so it got worse and worse, and I could feel myself freezing up. And you know, any mistake I was making, it was going to the most senior people in the organization. I couldn't even see them. I would check an email 20 times, and I wouldn't notice what the date was wrong or something stupid like that. And so what I did, I suddenly had this moment. I was like, oh my goodness, I know what's happening. I know what's happening with my brain. What am I, you know, this is my neuroscience training. And so I sat down with my manager and I said, James, I feel like you are a Japanese high-speed train, and I am gripping onto the side for dear life. I am doing my best, but I know I'm messing things up. And he said to me, Caroline, you're doing a bloody brilliant job. We are so happy. And what was extraordinary at that point in time was all of a sudden my brain just released. It was as if I had just been so terrified of losing my job and, all of these things that I thought were going to happen. Actually, my brain had completely frozen in a state of fear. But once I'd had that affirmation, all of a sudden I was off and running and I stopped making stupid mistakes. Now, you may have had that situation, maybe similar, maybe not quite the same, but similar. That situation where, in fact, maybe you're in a performance review and someone gives you feedback and you think, oh my goodness, I can't think clearly. You can't come back with any kind of response. Or in an argument, when you only think of the brilliant, clever response that you have after the argument. And this is what is happening in your brain. Our brain can only operate with 25 watts of energy at any point in time. So if we're in a high stress situation, our brain can't power up to 40 watts. It actually would fry like an egg. But what it does do is it moves the energy around to the place where it feels it needs it the most. So if we are in a high stress situation, if our amygdala, the smoke alarm, notices something that it feels like is a threat, our brain will prioritize that. Our brain prioritizes survival. So that 25 watts of energy will be prioritized for a threat response, which goes to the back part of the brain stem, the autopilot, and that's where it's powering us up for that threat response, the fight or flight. In that position, complex problem solving is not possible because the energy in our brain isn't in our prefrontal cortex. Our brain isn't thinking, oh, okay, I should be thinking strategically at this point in time. It's just thinking, how can I get out of this situation? The problem is that this happens not just in high stress, real situations. We're being burgled, we're being attacked, a saber-toothed tiger is coming for us. Nowadays, our brain is actually running on this old operating system. So it will use this same response in a situation which is office politics or an argument. And the problem is that unchecked, the neurobiological response can actually really erode our confidence. And then that obviously really impacts our executive presence. So that's our first evolutionary fact. The second thing, which is I think is fascinating, it has such a big part in terms of understanding how our brain works and our confidence levels, is negativity bias. So our brain is wired, again, to notice danger more than positivity. And this makes sense, right? Because if we were a caveman in the days when but before our brains are developed, when it's deciding who's, natural selection, who's going to survive, the caveman who is looking out for danger is the one who survives over the one who is sunbathing, having their pina colada. So negativity bias is where we are protected from danger. And so we notice things that our brain perceives as threat much more than we notice positive things. Now, unfortunately, this impacts our feeling about the future, and so our perception of how bad things are going to be. But it also impacts feelings about the past as well. So we tend to remember negative things much more than we do positive things. So no wonder our confidence suffers unless we're really deliberate about how we manage it. Okay, so with this in mind, we're going to have our first breakout room. And what I would like you to do is have a bit of a chat with the people in the room with you. Sorry. How has the amygdala hijack and negativity bias impacted your confidence?
Okay, I'll open up the rooms now. And so you'll be in a breakout room with 2 or 3 people, hopefully.
Yeah, great. So how has the amygdala hijack and negativity bias impacted your confidence?
And then the rooms will be about 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes. We'll give you a notice as well. How's that looking? We got everyone in a room?
Yeah, I think Izit might be in a room by herself. So let me just see if more people join, and then if not, I'll move her. Eleanor, um oh, let's see. Eleanor is in a room by herself. So let's see. I might have to move some folks around. So let me move Eleanor to room 1. Move to room 1. Okay, so everybody is in a room of 2 or 3 that I can tell right now. Okay, I think that works.
Right. Okay.
So about 9:24, I'll shoot out a message that says we're closing the breakout rooms in about 1 minute, and then we can close them off.
Yep. Yeah, I'm need to find some time from somewhere.
Find it. And then so you want to do a second breakout room.
No, we won't. We'll do I've got an exercise for them that they can just spend a couple of minutes writing down themselves.
Okay, awesome. So Caroline, what are your other plans for your time in the Bay Area?
Yeah, good question. Well, I've put out to a few people kind of saying, hey, I'm going to be there. So we'll see who is around. I'm going to be delivering my program to HSBC while I'm there, so I'll be
Nice.
also doing some work and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, just hopefully fill up the diary. I think I'll
Yeah.
need to get there on the Monday now rather than the Tuesday, just so I've
And
got.
who are the types of people that you're looking to connect with in the Bay Area outside of Sidebar members?
Oh, goodness, that's a great question. I mean, I guess if I look just from a business perspective, it's kind of business leaders and HR people. But at the same time, I think I'm always open. I think there's so much to learn from all sorts of different people as well. So if you think of anyone, let me know.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. If you have any, I mean, I've been in the Silicon Valley for 25 years. So connect with me on LinkedIn if you haven't. And I have a ton of connections, but if there's, specific folks,
Okay, all right. I'll
in
have a
my
look.
LinkedIn that I can do a double opt-in, that
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
more than
that's a good
happy.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I will.
And then, I don't know if you've used the feature yet, but I love this feature, the Ask an Experts feature within Sidebar, because the AI like pulls up like anybody that you're looking to, to find in the community. It does a really good job identifying them.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, so you could even also add locations. So you could say like, I'm looking for, other book authors in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'll probably pull up Larry, but like, but
Yeah.
it can
Yeah,
also
yeah, great.
search by location too.
Yeah, that would be, yeah, I've used it because I wanted to ask some people about white labeling.
Uh,
So um so yeah, it's that's something which I'm kind of struggling with a little bit. I've got very open action to get that sorted. Ollie, I don't know if you're an expert in white labeling.
No, not.
No, thanks. Good stuff. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I'll go through. I've been reaching out to everyone on the list
oh,
who's
good.
Sidebar, just
Oh,
connecting.
good. Yeah. Yeah. No, I published a list because I figured people would want to make connections
Yeah,
before and then know who's going to be there. So,
yeah,
etc. I think we also want to turn that into like like a faces gallery too.
yeah, great.
But it's one of the,
Yeah,
as you probably know, conference
it's a bit
planning is
sweet.
1,000 different
Yeah.
paper cuts is what I'll call them. So,
Have you done the notification
oh,
to
for
close rooms?
oh yeah, I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna do the broadcast message first. Okay, so broadcast message. We'll be closing the breakout rooms in 1 minute. Okay, and then I'm gonna close the rooms. And then that gives them 60 seconds to come back.
Cool. It's always interesting how quickly people come back.
Uh-huh.
Deep in discussion.
Hi, Myra.
We got everyone back? Coming back in?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, I'm really interested. Any of you throw in any observations to the chat of what you noticed, but give me a little hand up if any of you had experienced. You can do that virtually or in real life, as it were. If you have experienced that amygdala hijack or negativity bias.
I see Vinay's hand and Aman's hands.
Yeah.
And Yumin. So
Yeah.
Vinay, do you want to come off mute?
Yeah, sure. Should I just relate to something that I spoke about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, I feel like, I think I can totally relate in many ways because, oftentimes in day-to-day, these type of things happen, but I noticed myself, reaching out to a client after a while, after like some issues happen, and it kind of drove me to be like, oh, now they're going to worry about this and about this, and uh, I felt something falling apart, and it kind of happened that way as a few months ago, and then eventually I feel like I manifested negatively what actually happened. So looking back, I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I got to stop, focusing on that and focus uh, on, the present moment where you can actually be confident and fix what's going on. So,
yeah, it's very real, right? It's very real in terms of in so many different ways. Even if I said to you, how did your last week go? The first thing we think, oh my goodness, what on earth happened yesterday, let alone last week, right? But you're much more likely to have the memory of a big argument that you had than actually all of the fantastic stuff that happened. And to your point, so often we stop ourselves from doing things because of the lens that we have, which is it's going to be a disaster. And this is where the research has been really, really interesting. So as part of our, can you see my screen? Still?
Yeah.
So as part of our, for Brain Powered, we have surveyed over 17,000 people. And, oh, sorry. There we go. We surveyed over 17,000 people. And what we found was over 90% of people second guess themselves. 89% of people worry about making mistakes. 53% of people experience imposter syndrome. So when you're sitting around in a meeting thinking, I don't belong here, probably half of the other people are feeling the same way. 85% of people get anxious dealing with senior leaders. So as a senior leader, how are you making people around you feel safe? 83% of people compare themselves to others, think they're more intelligent. We should, everyone's thinking everyone is more intelligent than each other. And 77% of people don't speak up in meetings because they doubt themselves. So from an organizational perspective, this is a really big problem, both for you as an individual, not showing the brilliance that you have, limiting yourself, but as a leader, think about this untapped talent that you're not getting, the performance you're not getting because people lack confidence. And actually what we found when we started to work with people and started to help them see their potential and help them actually speak up more, we found that actually there was a 30% reduction in their stress levels and a 23% improvement in their confidence. And Sean Acor, who is he wrote a book called The Happiness Advantage. What he found was when the brain is positive, when you create in an environment where the brain is feeling, not in a fear response, you get it is 31% more productive than at negative, neutral, or stressed. So that old way of managing people, which is, you know, a stick and carrot approach, it really does not make sense. But even now, what we understand is there is so much more that we can get from people if we actually understand more about their confidence levels. So now I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the A5 formula. And the starting point of this comes from the fact that when we tend to think of confidence and we tend to think of presence, often what we think about is the exterior. So if you think about a race car, we tend to think about the beautiful. When you see a great racing car, you think, oh, isn't that gorgeous? You know, we look at the outside, think it's, you know, it looks fantastic. And this is where we tend to look at our abilities and our attributes. And so we're going to dive into each one of these. And the exterior of a racing car clearly is important. It is important that it looks good. However, there's much more to it as well. So let's dive first into abilities. So our abilities are our skills and competency levels. So like when I started in that chief of staff role, my competency level was low. I didn't know the job very well. But what tends to happen is over time, what happens is we end up with the confidence-competence loop. And what this means is that over time, as we learn, we learn what we're doing, we grow in our experience levels, our confidence grows. And so over time, we have this positively reinforcing circle. Okay, all right, now I understand. I've done that before. My confidence grows a little bit. And the research shows actually that from an executive presence perspective, the skills of communication are a crucial part of how people see you as having gravitas, which is a really crucial part of executive presence. And communication is about having superior speaking skills, having an ability to command a room, and being assertive. So some very simple things, and I wish we had more time. I could spend all day talking about all of these things, but three really important parts of how people see you as having executive presence. Now, as we go through, I'm going to give you the how. Now, plenty of you would have done a SWOT analysis, whether you've done it in your MBA or your whatever degree you've done, or just, you know, as running your business. But have you ever done a personal SWOT? And doing a personal SWOT is a really good way that we can start to look at those abilities and see where our gaps are. So I encourage you to get honest, get deep, and get planning on the skills that you need in order to progress. The next part of our A5 formula is attributes. So again, from our race car perspective, this is still from the exterior point of view. But when we think about our attributes, there are two parts to it. There are physical attributes and mental attributes. And interestingly, from a physical attributes perspective, the most important part that people see as crucial of having executive presence is polish and grooming. Now, notice this isn't about being the most attractive person in the room. This is about showing up and demonstrating that you care about how you look, that you actually, you know, that there's a reflection of, I'm going to show up with an attention to detail and that kind of value around myself in my role as well. So polish and grooming. That's by far the most important from an appearance perspective. But there is also something around being fit and healthy, and yes, a little bit about attractiveness too. But fitness, healthiness, and polish and grooming, really important. And as I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised at, body language too, particularly eye contact. And being able to hold a room and have eye contact with each of those people is a crucial part of people seeing you as having presence. Now, if we look at the attributes of someone from a mental point of view, what are the things that people will look for? Sorry. From a mental perspective around your attributes. They will look at decisiveness, your level of resilience, how you show up under pressure, and also optimism. And optimism isn't talked about very much from a confidence point of view, but if we think about that definition that we had, confidence is belief in my ability to figure things out. People who are more optimistic are more likely to go, you know what, I'll give it a go. Let's go. Come on, we can do this. So they're much more likely to step into that unknown. So focusing on that level of optimism and how you can be more optimistic is a great way of growing your confidence. But what happens if you have an amygdala hijack? So what happens if you are under that high pressure? And it does exist. So what can we do to manage ourselves in a way which we can really bring ourselves back down and manage our stress levels? And this is where there's a brilliant tool called the physiological sigh. And the physiological sigh is all about managing your breath. And the way it works is that we take 2 breaths in through our nose, like this, and a long exhale. So, and what is actually happening when we do this, if you imagine when a child cries and they get completely out of control and they go, you know, and they really, when they can't manage themselves, it's a very natural thing that they do. And what it does is we have thousands of alveoli in our lungs, the bags, the balloons that blow up in our lungs that get oxygen into our bloodstream. And the double breath in pops open those alveoli to get more oxygen into your blood faster. So you calm down faster. It communicates a message from your diaphragm to your brain, I am calm. So the wonderful thing about this is you can use it at any point in time. I did it in quite an exaggerated form, but you can do it in a very subtle way, even if you're just waiting to present. And what is beautiful about it is actually it can allow you to manage your breath and allow you to manage the pace at which you talk. And the difference in terms of someone asking you a question, I'll do an example. So, hey, Caroline, what do you think about this decision? Oh, yeah, I think it's a great decision. Yeah, brilliant. I'm really supportive. If we let our breath be the first word, notice what happens. Caroline, what do you think about this decision? I think it's a great decision. Do you see? That difference is executive presence. And you can hold a room with that. All right, so we've looked at the shiny exterior, and now we're going to go on the inside. And this is the bit which I think lots of people don't realize. They look at the exterior piece, the attributes and the abilities, and they forget everything that's underneath. And if you're struggling with confidence, this is probably what you're missing. And the engine of confidence is self-awareness. Awareness is about knowing your values, knowing your emotions and your actions. It's around understanding your limiting beliefs and your thought patterns. And the thing is that the more we are self-aware, knowledge is power. Knowledge about us and ourselves, understanding ourselves deeply, allows ourselves to trust ourselves. When we know ourselves, we can trust ourselves. And a fundamental part of this is knowing your values. And it's really interesting. So when I'm coaching people, I say, what are your values? And they go, oh, well, yes, I know this. And then they kind of tend to come out with a couple of things which maybe they've thought about that they've done on a company trip away, or maybe it's on a faded poster somewhere on a wall. And, you know, integrity, yes, something like that. But actually, you'd be amazed at how few people can really identify what their values are. And why is this so important? Authenticity. Because when your brain senses congruence between your values and your actions, it reduces the anxiety you feel and boosts your confidence levels. And that's a really crucial part of executive presence. Stressful situations also activate the brain's threat response, as we've talked about. But having clear values provides cognitive anchors. So it allows your brain to return to clarity and self-regulation. So that strengthens the executive functioning, the planning, the focus, and decision-making part of your brain. And thirdly, when your actions really repeatedly reflect your values, what you're doing is building neural consistency. The habits and behaviors that you have feel effortless and really automatic. And others start to mirror that. We know that executive presence is when, you know, people experience you in a way that builds trust, stability, and credibility. So understanding your values can be such a powerful way that you can show up as a leader. Now, one of the questions is, well, how do I identify them? And I'm going to ask you a question. Hopefully you've got a pen and paper that you can write something down on. And I just want you to spend a couple of minutes answering this question. What qualities do you look for in friends or a partner? I'm going to give you a couple of minutes just to write that down. Feel free to pop any of them in the chat as you go. Love to see what people come up with. Kindness, open-mindedness, respect and trust. Yep. Respect and integrity. Yeah. Keep digging. What else is in there? What else do we look for? There we go. No drama. Yeah. Love that. Intelligence, curiosity. Now notice what you are writing down, what you look for in other people is what is important to you. These are your values. So being super clear on these, having them on a piece of paper written down and referencing them for when you're making decisions, for when you're wondering why something is bugging you so much. Because things, when our values get tripped up on, when they get triggered, there's something which, you know, it will be something which is values-based. But particularly if you're making a big decision in your life, or even communicating to your team what things really bug you. I used to have to say to people, respect is a really important part for me. So don't turn up to my meetings late. You know, fairness, a big one. I'm the youngest of 4, so fairness is very important. So values, spend a bit of time writing those down and having them for reference. Oh, sorry, it keeps on going to my robot slide. The fourth piece in our A5 formula is around acceptance. And acceptance is a little bit like the oil in your engine. And so just like oil prevents friction in an engine, acceptance keeps your confidence running smoothly. And this brings me to my second definition of confidence, which was from a lady who I work with, who is a mindfulness teacher. And she said, confidence is about grounding in your true self, integrating your internal and external authenticity. And this is crucial because if we are lying to ourselves about who we are, actually, it will reduce our confidence. So we need to let go of who we feel we should be and be who we are, be real. Because actually our confidence will drop if our brain senses an incongruence between the two. Because what it says is, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe who I know I'm not showing myself to the world. Maybe I'm not enough. And our confidence drops. And this is where there's a great quote from Brendan Burchard again. The more you lie to yourself by not being authentic, the less confidence you will have. So how can you really change that level of confidence? This is something which, if there's one thing you take away today, it's such a great action. I don't know about you, I spent so many years achieving, but not feeling like I felt like I always moved the bar. It was never enough. But what I never did was integrate my wins. I never actually spent any time going, bloody hell, well done. Like, that was a really good job. All I did was move the bar and go on to the next thing. So if you can spend just a little bit of time celebrating what you've done, what you've achieved, and I do this now on a Monday morning. I write down, what am I most proud of from the last week? And I do that with my assistant as well. And we spend a little bit of time focusing on the positives. And what that does is constantly is builds that level of confidence up and up, because what it's managing is your negativity bias. Otherwise, we'll remember the tough conversations, the things that didn't work, rather than the ones that did. Finally, in our formula is action. Now, before I left the corporate world, I had an intuition that I could do more. But because of negativity bias, I felt fear that really held me back. And it was only by actually taking action that I could see what I could really do. And all the judgment that I feared, that I thought that all these people from a corporate perspective would go, oh goodness, look at her, what's she doing? In fact, has been the complete opposite. Everyone's been so supportive and excited about what I've done. And only now, having taken action, can I see what I'm capable of. And this is really crucial. Confidence is a muscle. We need to exercise it if we want it to grow. We have to step outside of our comfort zone if we are going to see the actual potential that we've got. And I love this quote from Mel Robbins: confidence isn't the absence of self-doubt, it's being willing to try even though you doubt yourself. So the more you step outside of your comfort zone, if you want to grow in confidence, take little steps. And that could look like challenging someone, asking a question when you wouldn't do normally, asking for a promotion, having a tough conversation you've been avoiding, or saying no to something that you wouldn't do normally. Remember, your negativity bias will make you think it's going to be much, much worse than it actually is. And the trick is about that is it will grow. It will really demonstrate that executive presence. Because executive presence is about decisiveness, initiative, adaptability, and it really embodies leadership in motion. So ask yourself, what is a bold move I can make this week? What could be something I can push myself and grow that confidence muscle? So summary for you, get your phones out if you want to. I will be dropping the PDF into the chat as well, so you'll have that too. But to summarize, I just want to recap. We've got some neurofacts. The triune brain, 3 parts of your brain. Your brain's number one priority is survival. Therefore, it will prioritize that over executive functioning. And you have a negativity bias that is very real, and that clouds how we think about ourselves. And we also have the Power A5 formula. Our abilities and attributes, yes, they're fundamental, but there's so much more to it around awareness, around acceptance, and around action. And this is only scratching the surface of confidence. But let me tell you, you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to keep showing up with intention, and your confidence and presence will grow from there. Okay. We have time for questions, I think.
Yeah, let's take a few questions, but while we're taking questions, I am also going to throw up the QR code. So let's see. Okay, so here we go. So feedback is a gift, and Sidebar and Caroline would so greatly appreciate if you could take out your phones, point it to the QR code. It's a very quick, short survey. Take you 1 minute to complete, but love to get the feedback around what you enjoyed about the session, what could have gone better, any ideas that you have for us in terms of future topics or speakers that you want to bring in. So that would be great. So I'll just leave this slide up while we're doing Q&A. So questions for Caroline?
I actually had a question that was sent to me ahead of time.
Okay, great.
If I jump, because I want to make sure I don't forget. Someone was saying that they recognize a pattern of struggling with confidence, but how do you rebuild your confidence and presence after it's been eroded over time? And what I wanted to say to this person is, first of all, watch what I've just gone through. Hopefully, I don't know whether you're on the call, but confidence is eroded over time because of all these things that we allow to happen, because we allow ourselves to focus on the negative. Just like I did, I focused on those small errors that I was making, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's part of our brain which is called the reticular activating system. It's like a filter that we have, and it means that we tend to notice things that we associate with our thoughts, our beliefs, and what we identify with. So if you are someone who is going, oh my goodness, my confidence dropped, oh, it's getting worse, no wonder you will see it. In the same way as when you buy a car and you see it everywhere, like everyone's got red cars, I didn't realize. That's the filter in your brain, and it does that. It filters things out to filter out lots of noise. So what I would say to you is, if you're struggling with confidence, start making steps, things like gratitude diaries, journaling, and actually focusing on even that Monday morning, what am I proud of? Stop focusing on the negative, because as I said, what that will do, it will completely keep on eroding your confidence. And the other piece is really get to know yourself. A wonderful exercise you can do is a timeline, a life or career timeline, and focus on all the great stuff you've done. Actually recognize that, because so many of us we just skip over it. Like I mentioned, just moving the bar. So hopefully a couple of things there for them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? And feel free to go off of mute.
Yeah.
I can ask one question. Great presentation, Caroline. And I've noticed there's a very clear highs and lows of confidence during the day or week that people tend to feel, including me, which might depend on you did an excellent presentation in front of people, you killed it, you feel awesome, and you've got this high for a few hours. And then there are times it's like the opposite, something didn't go well that you wanted to, and then you go through those lows. I mean, I'm guessing that's a common thing, but how do you find that consistency of being in the high confidence zone, or not having to go through so much of roller coaster up and down?
Yeah, and this is a lot of these things. It's how loud is that critic that you have, because we all have an inner critic, right? We all have the voice which is ultimately trying to protect us, but is kind of says, yeah, well, you did do that, but and that comes from our childhood. It comes from maybe a teacher or a parent or someone at school, whatever that was. And the thing is that that contributes towards the negativity piece. And so if we don't have deliberate practices which shift the way our brain is working and to focus more on being a champion rather than a critic, what will happen is it will very quickly bring us down, even if we have the highs. So that I like to think of my brain a bit like a spring. And over time, there's all sorts of things that wind it up and make it very stressed. And, you know, those, so in terms of me being able to function in a way that is really effective and positive, is really difficult when it's very highly strung. So actually, you know, even things like good sleep, like our amygdala is much more sensitive to negativity when we're tired. So we'll notice much more when we're tired. So good sleep, in some ways it's the boring stuff. Good sleep, nutrition, exercise. You know, these are things which are really directly within your control. And meditation as well. It can be a wonderful way to stop you from having that very reactive response to things, rather than a nice calm response and thinking, you know what, hang on a minute. What is that? I'm noticing that negativity is coming up again. Let me observe it rather than react to it. And that could be a nice way to actually, rather than have these like, oh goodness, ups and downs, ups and downs. And it's one of those things that has so many health benefits, but you know, it's free, but it's one of the hardest things that people kind of struggle with. Does that answer your question?
Yes, great points. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
But I love the point about like sort of just taking a few minutes to not immediately respond, you know, like if, you know, and this happens all the time, right? Somebody writes a Slack message that pisses you off, or just, you know, or you see something and you're just so upset about it, and your immediate inclination is just to write back and respond, and maybe it just like is not, you'll regret it later. And so just taking a few minutes, take a breath, do some meditation, come back to it later. I think that's a great reminder. Guadalupe.
Yeah, so what I'm bringing was also my breakout room. So I see this whole conversation was more about like how I feel, how I do, but what about the external forces? You know, like for example, I'm job searching, so you know, I get like a lot of rejection. Sometimes like the rejection emails comes like 5 minutes after I apply for the job. And how we can like combat this in a way to not like, you know, make your confidence like super low.
Yeah. And this is really, it's such an important part of life, actually, both from a confidence level and our overall stress levels. And that's about control. Our brain doesn't like lack of control. Lack of control is scary. If it hasn't been there before, it has a threat response. And so that lack of control can come up in lots of different ways. It can come up in, you know, the pandemic when it first happened and everyone was terrified. But it can also mean, you know, I'm applying for a job and I've put myself out there. This is me, my identity, and I'm getting rejected. So what's really important is to focus on what you can control. We will really struggle if we are trying to, if we're constantly focusing on things which are in our environment. You may be familiar with the circle of control by Steve Covey. There's the things we can control, things we can influence, and on the outside, there's the circle of concern. Don't focus on things in the circle of concern. It's just a recipe for disaster. At any point in time, of course, there's things that we can influence, and maybe that's a part of the SWOT. Okay, hang on a minute. You know, when I send that out, what could I do? So I had a friend, she applied for a job on LinkedIn, and, you know, she got a rejection. And then she went, hang on a minute. And she looked on her contacts, found someone who worked at that company, sent them a note and said, hey, I've applied for this job. She now works for that company. So there's always things that we can do, kind of say, well, how can I bring things more into my influence or into my control? Otherwise, you just got to let it go.
Thank you.
That is brilliant advice. Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more question, and then we'll close it off.
Yes, but Andrew Huberman is the second man in my life, Vinette. I love him.
Yes.
I send him a Christmas card every year. He's just amazing. Yep. Sorry, one more question. Any more?
Okay. Well, first of all, that was brilliant, Caroline. I feel like my confidence level just maybe inched up by 0.5.
That's
So
cool.
wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this and having us here. And we look forward to having you at the summit. I think you're going to be facilitating a roundtable on this very subject. So hopefully we'll see many of you there. And have an amazing day, everybody. Stay positive, stay energetic, meditate.
Thank you
Okay.
very much. Thanks for
Bye.
coming along. Take care.
Thank you.